It's tax time. Did you do your taxes yet? It's tax time. Did you do your taxes yet? I said it's tax time. Did y'all do your taxes yet? Did y'all do your taxes yet? Did y'all do your taxes yet? If not, watch this video. Hey beautiful people, coming to you with 4 tips. I said 4, this is 8, sorry. 4 tips for tax time to help you just get your life. I'm not gonna be going into detail, like nitty gritty, like walking you through doing your taxes, but these are just 4 general tips that I've come across that I think are really, really helpful and may be able to save you some money, some time, some stress. Because I know for me, initially doing taxes was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna owe the IRS like millions of dollars? Because but just stay tuned. Now these tips are pretty simple, but I'm gonna say them just in case you're that person who hasn't heard these things, and hopefully I help somebody. Number 1, use a free tax service if you have a simple tax situation. Too many times you hear of people going down to H&R Block to get their taxes done. They're just like, here people, like, I'll answer the questions, I'll bring you the documents, and you just like do it for me. And then you got to pay them, whether it's $75, $100, $200, whatever the price that they charge. They're literally answering questions that you can fill out if you're using the same H&R Block website or TurboTax or whatever tax preparation account you want to use. It's literally the same thing. You go in and they ask you questions, you say yes, no, or you enter amounts based on the documents that you have, and it's the same thing. The documents that you take to that person, you upload those documents. Like literally when you get it in the mail, or for me, I get them emailed to me, I just download them as a PDF, or you can scan them onto your computer and you just upload it, and then it will populate into that account in the tax service. All you got to do is double check to make sure that the numbers are correct, and majority of the time they are correct, but you just want to go back and double check just to make sure. So unless you have like a cajillion dollars, you have multiple real estate, multiple businesses going on, then I would say, okay, maybe consult someone about that, because there are different tax laws for whatever the case is. But the majority of us have very simple tax situations. It's still simple even if you have a mortgage. That's still simple. It's still simple even if you decided this year, I'm gonna start investing. Especially if you're using a robo-advisor like Wealthfront, Betterment, Fundrise, like those things like that, still simple. Even if you were like, Monique, I listened to you. I did. I got a high yield savings account. Even then, it's still simple. And the best part, what I love about having these online accounts, is that I don't have to wait for them to mail me anything. By the 31st of January, they email me like, here are your tax documents. At first, I didn't even know that I needed tax documents for certain things, but they were like, here you go, and these are the forms you need, and you just upload them. So we will get back to the ease of using those free services later. But if you do want to, for example, get into using those online services for yourself, and say, you know what, I'm not necessarily comfortable just doing it all myself, I want to consult someone while I'm doing it. Those services do have like the pros or the deluxe options in Premier, where you can have a live CPA. I forgot exactly what CPA stands for, but they're like tax experts. I forget what the actual letters stand for, but they're tax experts and they're there. So like while you're doing your taxes, if you have a question, you can absolutely reach out to them and they'll help you with that situation. And you may pay a few dollars for that. And that brings me to tip number 2. If that is the route that you want to take, say this is your first time and you're like, Monique, I'm gonna try it out, I'm gonna listen to you, I'm gonna try it out and try to do my taxes myself, but I'm gonna pay for a consultant or whatever, that package, check your credit cards, because credit cards are not only good for cash back, a lot of times they have bonuses. So for example, one of my Visa cards even right now has, I think, 10% back on any money I pay for TurboTax. So if I paid for a package for TurboTax and I used my Visa card to pay for it, they would give me cash back for that. I think another one of my cards for H&R Block, it's like if you spend like $50 or more, they give you a certain amount on your statement credit. So if you do want to go ahead and spend that money, like use your credit cards and get cash back for it. Yeah, I should change my name from Daily Dose of Melanin to credit card. Like use your credit card. All right. Tip number 3, understand the standard deduction. Understand it, please, because I've heard so many, like growing up and even now, you hear so many people say things like, oh, you can just write that off. Oh, you can write that off. I'll give you some examples real quick. Like if you donate to charity or if you tithe at your church, if you, for example, your mortgage, if you have a mortgage, the interest that you pay on your mortgage, usually they say you can write it off and things like that. Let me just take a minute to explain the standard deduction for some people because I didn't understand it too well until like now. So basically, the federal government goes, you know what, I'm just going to give everyone a certain amount off of their taxes. I'm going to reduce their taxable income. So the amount that you make every year, I'm going to reduce that by a certain amount for everybody, right? And every year it changes. So this year it is $12,400. What does that mean? If you made $100,000 this year or 2020, if you made that much money, I'm manifesting it in your life. If you didn't make it this year, you're going to make it coming up, manifesting that in your life. If you made $100,000, if you did nothing else, right? If you did absolutely nothing else, if you didn't give to charity, if you didn't do da-da-da-da-da, you would be taxed not at $100,000, but $100,000 minus the $12,400. I hope that makes sense. So I'm gonna say it another way just in case like I lost some people with the number calculations. I might also like write it across the screen somewhere. But basically, the government's like, you know what? I'm sure some people give to charity throughout the year. They do this. They have expenses. Some people have kids. People have to get to work. There are things that they do. So we're just going to reduce the amount that we tax them for everybody by $12,400. And that's for this year. Every year it changes. I think last year was $12,200. So it means you're not getting taxed at that the exact amount that you get paid every year. With that being said, there are usually two ways or two options in your taxes. You can take the standard deduction or you can itemize. I'm gonna go real slow for this just in case, because this can get a little confusing for people. And I encourage you, if it was confusing, just rewind and rewatch this video. So we have standard deduction or we have itemized deductions. So deductions are those things like giving to charity, your interest, I think depending on whatever car payments, or depending on how that works. You can kind of Google it to see what you deduct things for, right? If all the things that you did to get written off, all the things that you're gonna write off, right? So all of those things that are kind of listed and what other things go in your situation. If all of those things do not add up to more than $12,400, it does not make sense to itemize. So that means you're gonna take the standard deduction. In other words, it didn't matter. Like, it's as if those things didn't count because the government took that into account already. I hope that makes sense. So unless you have done, okay, let's go with an example just so I can make sure that I'm being super clear. If I'm just gonna go with charity. I'm gonna stay with charity. Say I gave to charity this year. I'm just gonna do one example just because it's just easier to follow, right? If I gave to charity this year and I only donated $10,000, even if I put that into TurboTax, or even if I go to a tax person, they'll put that in for you, but it will not make a difference on your refund. Because why? It is not larger than the standard deduction. Okay, now, if you do go over that $12,400, then you would itemize your deductions. So say you gave $20,000 to charity this year, right? Then that would be larger than that standard $12,400. So you would itemize those deductions, meaning you would write out line by line, I did this, this is how much it costs. I did this, how much it costs. Line by line by line by line. It's gonna be individual, not just one big lump sum. So usually that will affect your refund even more, because why? Now instead of that $100,000, you're gonna be taxed at $80,000 because you deducted $20,000 from your taxes. I hope that kind of makes sense. This is a very simplistic way of kind of looking at everything. There are, of course, nuances and details. And what I like about, for example, going onto these online services, one, if you can put in literally all that information. Say you're like, I don't know if I should itemize, I don't know if everything equal, I don't know, I really just don't know. You put in everything into TurboTax or H&R Block or whatever service you use. You upload all that information, and then when it's done, it'll tell you your deductions were this amount of money. Our recommendation is that you take the standard deduction because it's larger than what your itemized would be, or vice versa. Our recommendation is that you would itemize your deductions because it's larger than the standard deduction. It will tell you. And in case you're like, wait a second, that number does not look right. How did I give that much money away? Hold up. What I also like is that you could click on it. It'll ask you, want to know how we arrived at this number? You click on it and it literally tells you, like, they added this number, this number, this number, this number from the things that you inputted. Also, if you're not sure what can be counted as a deduction, Google it. That's what I do. I literally will have my TurboTax, my H&R, whatever the case is, have it side by side, and then I'm like, Google, can I deduct this? And it'll be like, yes or no. Does medical school count as higher education for taxes? Yes or no. So it is your best friend. And the first time it is very nerve-wracking. I can understand that. But once you get the hang of it, like, it is simple. And I say this to say, maybe you do your taxes and you're like, you know what? This ain't for me. I don't got time for it. I don't want to deal with it. That is fine. But I think it's also important to know how to do these things, because that way you can be vigilant when other people are doing your taxes for you. Because when you make that $1 million, because yes, you're gonna make it, when you make that, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure paychecks or whatever, and you have, those will be more complicated situations, and you might go to someone to manage your money for you. That way you're not blind, like, hey, just do with my money as you please. This way you have at least a basic knowledge, basic understanding of what's going on, so you can kind of be like, I don't think that looks right, or this is kind of where I think I want to go, and things of that nature. Another thing about the tax services is that they are really, really helpful with having those question boxes. Even if you do the most basic package, which is not paying for any advice or live agent to be with you, like the most basic package, for every step of the way, they ask you questions. So they'll ask you stuff by saying, do these things apply to you? And they'll ask you, did you move this year? Did you, what is it called? Did you donate to charity? Did you have a child? Did you, like, all of these questions, they'll ask you those things, and you click yes or no if it applies to you, and then based on your answers, it goes through and asks you those different questions. And if you don't understand something, you're just like, I don't understand what this question is asking me. I don't know if this applies to me. I don't necessarily know what this means. There are a lot of like question mark bars by the text. So a lot of the questions that they ask you, they have like a little info bar, and you click it and it'll go on the side and say, this is what it means, and it has extra details. And I found that very, very, very helpful in the past few years that I've been doing my taxes. And the last tip that I have is, if you get a refund, have a plan for your refund. Too many times people are just like, okay, when I get my refund, I'm blowing it all like immediately. If you need some ideas on what to do with your refund, please check out my video on 3 moves to make, I can't remember what I titled the video, but I'm gonna link it probably in the info cards or something. I'll link it in the description box too. But watch that on my ideas of what you can do if you get a large sum or a largish sum of money. So whether for your taxes, birthday, whatever. But check that video out. So guys, we're trying to grow this money. We're trying to manage this money, keep this money. So don't spend it unnecessarily. If you truly don't feel comfortable, that is okay. Like, that is okay. You know, I definitely didn't do a really in-depth video this time. This was just scratching the surface. Let me know if you have more questions or if you want me to do more videos or kind of walk you through, like, I don't know, using TurboTax or something like that. I can absolutely do that. Not a tax expert. I just kind of share what I know and hope for the best. But this is YouTube. You can check out a lot of other videos out there. But this is all for now. Didn't want this to be too long. Show your love, like for the hair, and I hope you enjoy your daily dose of melanin. Love y'all.